Hi guys, I'm Amy and welcome to my podcast, Spill the Teeth, where I spill the tea on everything dentistry and a bunch of other fun things. Welcome to my third episode. So for those keeping track at home, I am currently on week 6 of my D2 spring semester. I know, crazy, right? And it really isn't 6 weeks because my first week was just 2 days, so Thursday and Friday. Why they didn't give those 2 days off remains a mystery to me, but supposedly it has to do with how many weeks are counted in the semester, and it affects the summer break, so I guess I can't complain. But anyway, technically, week 6. And I just want to make a clarification before I begin. I say a lot of we and us when I talk about what I've done in dental school is because I'm usually referring to me as part of my class, so I tend to say we and us when really in this setting where I'm just talking to you guys and it's just me by myself, it's really me doing it. So if I say we or us, then I'm really talking about me as part of my class. So what are the things that me and my class did this week? I will go in order in what I did during the week. So on Tuesday, I was in RPD. Remember, that stands for removable partial dentures, and I was once again doing receipts, guide planes, reciprocal planes, and those are still tough for me, and it's definitely been a learning curve. But this weekend I'm going to be in lab doing some more receipts and guide planes and reciprocal planes, and also I have to practice more because we have a practical. See, I said we again. We as in my class. We have a practical coming up in 2 weeks, I believe, because that will lead me and my class right into midterms. I just shudder at the amount of practicals and midterms that I have, but let's not think about that right now. In RPD, we had a bunch of sets of receipts and guide planes due that day, so it was a little hectic in lab with everyone trying to get their stuff signed off. There's only 49 people in our class, but that can be a lot when there's only 5 professors there and 10 people are lined up to see the one professor that's part of their row, or if one professor is split between 2 rows, so it can get a little hectic in lab, especially when we were all trying to get things signed off because we didn't want to get a late grade. So in endo, we practiced cleaning, shaping, and disinfecting a practice tooth. So instead of it being a plastic tooth, normally found in a dentiform, or practicing it on a natural tooth, we have a specific tooth meant for boards for endo. So the root of the tooth is clear and you can see where the pulp canal is, and so we use that to practice cleaning, shaping, and disinfecting. Up until this point, we have only been doing accesses on anterior teeth, premolars, and molars, but this was our first time using the files and the rotary instruments to really get down into that canal. And that lab was a little hectic too because we were arranging our files in different sizes and we had to have a demo played over our computers at our lab stations in order to see what the steps were. But all in all, it wasn't too bad. It was a little confusing because I had to keep track of what instruments I had to use and when. But other than that, it was kind of interesting, and initially I didn't really like endo because I think it was just the process of gathering the natural teeth, which was a process of its own. D1s, if you're listening, if you know that you need natural teeth and you haven't started collecting them, please start doing it now. Because what happened to me, unfortunately, was that the jar that I dropped off at an oral surgeon, and this was remotely done through the dentist that I shadowed with, but they dropped off the jar at the oral surgeon, and unfortunately the person who worked there gave my jar of teeth to a different dental student because it was my fault, partially because I didn't put my name on it before I gave them the jar. But yes, my jar of teeth got given away, so now there's a punk dental student walking around out there with my teeth. So anyway, but fortunately my school collects teeth from oral surgery, so my school doesn't have an oral surgery residency in the school, so our dental school does a lot of extractions by themselves, but some of those teeth are set aside just in case things like this happen, or that you didn't collect enough teeth when you're supposed to. So they have been put in a jar and put aside for these situations. So the natural teeth that I've been using were not the original ones I was planning to use because of the unfortunate circumstance of my teeth being given away. But I was obviously able to find enough teeth to mount in my endodentiform and use for accesses. So anyway, endo went well. I got my anterior accesses handheld and mounted signed off, and I will be working this weekend on getting the rest of the mounted accesses done with. In operative, we've also been working with natural teeth. So in my operative class, they are really emphasizing that they want us to work on natural teeth before we get into clinic and before we actually have to work on natural teeth in somebody's mouth. So we mount natural teeth into our dentiform, and so we are able to simulate drilling on natural teeth, or as natural as they come. To do this, we had to try and find a full dentition of teeth, so all 32 teeth, including the third molars. So if you've ever gotten a jar of teeth back from your oral surgeon or your dentist, you are probably familiar that it is very hard to find a full dentition of teeth. Either you have all anteriors, or you have some premolars but are missing a different arch premolars, or you have all molars, so you can run into a lot of problems. In my case, I was missing a maxillary second premolar, and I just couldn't find one that wasn't endodontically treated, because we are not doing endo and operative, so they wanted us to avoid the endo-treated teeth, and a lot of the teeth in the tooth jar are a lot of endo-treated teeth, because we work criteria for searching for the teeth were that some had caries in it, some had composite restorations, some had amalgams, some had caries. We wanted to avoid, though, the endo-treated teeth, and honestly teeth that were pure, I guess, meaning they did not have any restorations. Unfortunately, I had a lot of clean teeth, so I'll be making up some restorations due to caries as I go, but I was able to find some that did have some staining that could be caries. I had one with an amalgam restoration and a couple with some composite restorations. So after we chose our teeth, we had to mount them in our dentiforms, which involved a lengthy process of sticking these natural teeth into these gums that had cutouts for teeth, and then pouring stone into this mold for the teeth, and then onto our dentiform so it had something to hold on to. Let me tell you, the way that these teeth came out after being mounted in stone is very strange. Mind you, our full dentition doesn't belong to one person, so it's probably 32 different people's teeth in a mouth that we're trying to put these teeth into, so you can imagine that the teeth look very janky. There's different sizes of them. There could be premolars that are not in the right place because you are missing a lateral or something. So all in all, the end result looks very strange, and unfortunately I did not take a picture of it because I was kind of running short on time. But if I remember to take a picture in lab when I'm there over the weekend and before this episode comes out, I will put a picture in the video for people watching on YouTube. So that was all the interesting stuff that I did during the week. And let's move into the hot and nots for the week. So, as always, I'm going to start with the not because I always believe in starting with the bad news first. The not was RPD lab, so removable partial denture lab. And partially it was doing the rest, the guide planes, the reciprocal planes, which again, like I said before, and in the last episode, I'm not very good at because it's new for me, but that can also make it very frustrating. But for this lab, we had to get 2 sets of preps signed off and an 18 crown prep, which I forgot to mention early in this episode, but we not only had the 2 sets of rest seats and guide planes and reciprocal planes, but we also had an 18 crown prep due. So that was due all in that lab period. So you have 49 people trying to get 3 things signed off, and you have 5 professors there, which equals very lengthy lines. But thankfully for me, I got all 3 of them signed off. I know some of my classmates were not as fortunate just because of the length of the lines and depending on how long the professor took to critique our work. The hot for this week was I was in lab and I was able to help some D1s with their crown prep. So the D1s are working on, I believe, a number 30 crown prep for a full gold crown, and that's what I did my D1 spring semester. So me and my class, we did a crown prep on number 30, and then we went through the steps of waxing it up and then investing and casting it in gold ourselves. But I was able to help some D1s with their crown preps by giving them the techniques that I use when doing my crown preps. And honestly, the techniques that I've been using for crown preps have come pretty recently. Like for me, I didn't really feel confident doing crown preps until last fall. I know, you're probably thinking, Amy, you probably should have gotten it together. But I started crown preps in my D1 spring semester, was good enough to pass, and then didn't do anything with crown preps over the summer because I was an operative 2 and I was in ortho, and then I didn't touch crown preps again until last fall. So I gave them techniques on what burrs to use and kind of what the crown prep should look like. And you guys know about me and my confident issues, but I don't know, there's something about being able to help somebody that kind of lets you know, like, hey, I do know what I'm doing. I hope, at least. So that was nice. They don't have to take the advice that I give them. That is up to them. I take no responsibility for whatever happens based on that advice, but I only give advice that has worked for me. And sometimes it's nice to have different opinions on things, that they have other things that they can try out instead of just doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same results. Because as one of my professors said, who I did research with, that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting the same results. Okay, so now that I have spilled tea on the dentistry side, I want to talk about something that's not really dental related, but kind of is still adjacent to dentistry and whatever, because I can't help it, I'm into dentistry. This Saturday, or this would have been this past Saturday because my episodes come out on Monday, my school had their winter formal. So all the professors and all the students and everyone associated with the school is invited. They go to a place and they have dinner at like a banquet place or whatever, and then they dance and party it up. But I decided not to go because, one, I don't like people, and that is not my way of relaxing after a long week, is to go out and see more people. I would rather be in my bed watching YouTube. But also, it's because I have what I believe is social anxiety. And disclaimer, I am not self-diagnosing myself because I am not a doctor who is specializing in that field, but based on things that I know about myself, that's what I choose to call it. And please be careful about self-diagnosing yourself. I feel that in the light of social media, that a lot of people are self-diagnosing themselves with conditions they don't have. I think people tend to get into a habit of watching a video of someone who has an actual diagnosed condition, and they pick out one thing of their symptoms and are like, oh, I have that one thing, so I must have this condition, when in actual reality, you're just a weird person and you have a quirk. So that is my disclaimer for this portion of the podcast. Don't self-diagnose yourself. If you believe that you have a condition, please go see someone who is specialized in that field. So let's get into what social anxiety disorder is. But according to Mayo Clinic that I have pulled up here, in social anxiety disorder, fear and anxiety lead to avoidance that can disrupt your life. Severe stress can affect your relationships, daily routines, work, school, or other activities. And I've always been on the shy side and an introvert. If you knew me as a kid, I would describe myself as painfully shy, where I wouldn't look at people if they were talking to me, and I generally avoided talking to people. Now, I don't want the haters to come and say, well, that's because you were homeschooled. I wasn't homeschooled technically until 3rd grade, and I was very shy way before that, and I was in public school then too. Does being in public school and public settings definitely help you to become less shy? For sure. But I would be the poster child of stereotypical homeschools, but I would be a poster child for stereotypical homeschoolers because I am a naturally shy person. I don't like meeting new people, I don't like going places outside my home, so there's that. And when I talk about social anxiety, I'm not talking about it affects every single thing that I do, because I'm in dental school, I'm choosing to go into dentistry, and that does not scare me at all. And if you see me in dental school, you probably wouldn't guess that I'm very introvert. I wouldn't say that I'm outgoing at school, but I definitely talk to people, I talk to my professors, and I'm not sitting in a corner by myself. But with that being said, school is my comfort zone. So I am very comfortable when I am in school. And so that is why I call my social anxiety situational social anxiety, where I only have it in certain places. So if I'm around people that I know, especially my family and my friends, I'm very loud, I'm very outgoing, and I won't avoid going out with them. And this is the same with school, where I'm very comfortable, I know exactly what I need to do in school, what classes I'm taking, what my end goal is, so that is my comfort zone. But if you take me out of the school setting and without the people that I know, like family and friends, I'm very withdrawn and I'm probably sweating up a storm. And this is even with the people in my own class. So if I'm in class with these people, I will talk to them, I will joke with them, I get along very well with the people that are in my row in our lab classes. I have inside jokes with people, and I feel that if I were standing in line waiting for professor to sign off my work, I could talk to anybody in my class. Which is an upside of having a class as small as mine. But what's interesting is that if you put me with the same people outside of my class setting, I don't want to be around. I clam up. I don't want to go where they are. I feel that I have nothing in common with them outside of school, and I generally avoid doing things outside of the school settings with people in my class. The one exception is trivia night, because I'm a very competitive person and me and my team have been chasing first for a long time. But getting back to the social anxiety topic, this is why I do not go to anything outside of school like the formal. Even though there are people that I know from my class and people from other classes that I know I would be sweating up a storm, I'd be anxious and nervous and all around not having a good time. And if I did go, I'd probably be looking for an excuse to get out of there as soon as possible. For me, the social anxiety manifests as sweating, which is a terrible thing because I naturally run hot as a person anyway. Mix naturally running hot and sweating because I'm anxious, and it's just a bad mix. My heart rate also increases, and I experience a feeling that I describe as wanting to crawl out of my skin. And the closest visualization that I have of that actually came when I was watching The Good Doctor. So if you know about The Good Doctor, it's about Dr. Sean, and he has autism, and he is a resident, or early on is a resident at a hospital. And I haven't watched the full series, but my friend is watching it, and so I've kind of jumped on some episodes with her when I was studying at her house. And there's this one scene where Dr. Sean is at a gala of some sort, and he walks into the room, and he has a very visceral reaction of being in that room with people. And if I find a clip, I will link it, but after watching that, I was like, wow, that's really close to what I experience when I am in situations that I'm uncomfortable with as someone who has social anxiety. Dr. Sean's manifestation is a little bit different because I think he has audio and visual disturbances as well, and I don't have that. I sweat a lot, my heart rate goes up, and I feel like I'm crawling out of my own skin and need to get out. And some of you may be thinking, wow, Amy, you really need to get that checked out. But I have always experienced it, being a naturally shy and introverted person, and I know it's also because I don't like to go out and do things. I'd rather stay inside. I'd rather stay at home and be with my family, but it does affect me where people will invite me to places, and the thought of being around people in an environment that I'm not comfortable with makes me very uncomfortable, and I probably would say no to it. So you may be thinking, well, maybe it is a phobia because phobias affect your daily life, but it doesn't really affect my daily life that often, maybe because I'm not invited many places. And no, for people who I know who are watching this, please don't feel the need to invite me places. I genuinely don't want to go because I am a homebody, But there are times where I feel like something would be fun, but I just can't bring myself to do it because I'm so uncomfortable. But in my quest of researching social anxiety, particularly for this episode, I came across some do-it-yourself tests to see if you do have situational anxiety, and I realized internet tests are not a good way to diagnose something. So please don't use internet tests to diagnose conditions. But I thought it would kind of be fun to take one and see, like, do I have social anxiety, or do I just not like leaving the house? So the first test is from Psychology Today, and so they give me these situations, and I have to decide whether I strongly disagree, strongly agree, or I am neutral on these topics. So for those of you watching along, you can see on the screen what choices I'm clicking, and for those who are listening, I'll be reading off the options and telling you what I agree or disagree with them. So number 1, I avoid public speaking, and I strongly agree with that. I will avoid it like the plague. I don't like speaking in public, and I don't like giving presentations, so yes, I would strongly agree with that statement. But the thing is that once I get going, I'm actually not a bad public speaker. I tend to know what I'm talking about if I do have to do a presentation, so my confidence kind of overrides that. But if given a choice, I would avoid public speaking. The second one is I'm always eager to answer a text or call. I don't like talking on the phone. A text, however, I will respond to. So I'm going to put not strongly disagree, but there is an option where I guess it's a mild disagree, so I'm going to do mild disagree. Third one is I consider myself to be a shy person, and I would strongly agree. The fourth one is I enjoy meeting and talking to new people, and I would strongly disagree with that sentiment. I do not enjoy meeting and talking to new people. That is probably why I don't go out and do things, because if you don't go out and do things, you don't have to meet and talk to new people. The fifth one is knowing I will attend a party on the weekend stresses me out all week. I strongly agree. If I know something's coming up over the weekend, I will stress about it all week. And if I know that I have to go to something that day, I will set an alarm like an hour before so I can just get myself ready and probably make myself more nervous waiting for it. So I strongly agree with that. The sixth one is I think meetings are the worst part of the workday. I don't have meetings right now because I'm a dental student. I think it really depends on what the meetings would be about, so I'm going to stay neutral on that. The seventh one is when I disagree with someone, I usually keep it to myself. I think for me it depends on what I disagree with. There are instances where I would hope that I would speak up if I disagreed with something, but usually I probably would keep it to myself because I don't like confrontation, so I'll do moderately or mildly agree with that. Number 8 is I find it difficult to relax at a party unless I've had some alcohol. Now, personally for me, I don't drink alcohol, so this doesn't really apply to me, but I do find it difficult to relax at a party. So I guess I will strongly disagree with that statement, but I disagree with the alcohol part because I personally don't drink. It's not easy for me to talk to someone I find attractive. Well, I'll let you know when I find someone attractive. But I guess one of the most attractive people I know is Paul Newman, and I know he's dead, God rest his soul. But yes, if I met Paul Newman, I would find it difficult to talk to him because he's attractive. The 10th one is I believe other people want to hear what I have to say. I'm under the personal belief that no one cares about what other people think, and that's not just me being socially anxious. I just think in life, people don't really care about what other people have to say, so I would say strongly disagree. The 11th one is, at social gatherings, I blush, sweat, and feel my heart race. Well, if you're listening to me earlier, I experience all those things, so strongly agree. Number 12 is, I always try to speak loudly and clearly. Well, I guess that depends. Only situation I can think of something similar like this is saying something out loud in class, and if you sit next to me, which my friend Emily does, I don't talk loud enough when I have answers that the teacher asks for, so I would say I wouldn't say I strongly disagree with that. I would say moderately disagree. Number 13 is I can get nervous when I have to speak to a boss or a teacher. It depends on the teacher or the boss, because some of my teachers that I've had, I find it really easy to talk to, but others I don't. I'm going to base this answer on initial meetings with a boss or a teacher, so I would say mildly agree with that statement. Number 14 is I don't like being asked to join in when people are singing or dancing, and strongly agree with that. If you know me, I hate singing and dancing in public. Now, if I'm by myself or with my family and friends and I do a little shoulder shimmy in the store or something, that's fine. But like being at the formal dancing, no. So I strongly agree with that. Number 15 is I'm okay with not having any social plans on the weekend, and I strongly agree. That is my jam. If I don't have any social plans, I don't have to see anyone over the weekend, I am perfectly okay with that. That is also one of the reasons why I go into lab so early. So my lab at my school opens at 6 a.m. 7 days a week. And so on Saturday mornings, I'm there at 6 a.m. because no one's there at that time and I can play my music as loud as I want and I'm generally undisturbed. So I strongly agree with that. Number 16 is I get embarrassed easily even around people I know. So around people I know, I don't worry about getting embarrassed. In fact, I probably do things that are embarrassing, so I'm gonna stay neutral on that. And most of the time, I really don't care about what people think about me, and so neutral. Number 17 is I have lied to avoid a social gathering or to leave one early, and I have to say that I have lied to do this. I would probably lie to avoid a social gathering rather to leave it early. And honestly, the first thing in my mind is when I get invited to something is how can I get out of this. So yes, I have lied to avoid a social gathering. I usually don't lie to leave something early because I will just leave. Like my class had a party for the D0s at the time, so the D1s that are in class right now, we hosted a party for them as they prepared to come into the school, and that is where we got our superlatives for our class. But for that, I just left. I did not tell anyone I was leaving. I kind of just slipped out into the night. I had originally come there with my friend, and I think she was talking to somebody and she turned around and I was gone. So I strongly agree with that one. Number 18 is I try to avoid restaurants where other people can see me. I don't usually do that, but also I really wouldn't go out to a restaurant because I try to eat at home where no one can see. Well, see, now that I say it out loud, I guess yes, then I do try to avoid restaurants where other people can see me. So, strongly agree. Number 19 is before a social event, I spend a lot of time thinking about who I'll talk to and what I might say. Strongly agree with that one. I would probably not even go to an event if I didn't know anybody there, and I would probably cling to their side like a barnacle. But I definitely base myself going off of because I know somebody there that at least I know someone I can talk to, so strongly agree. The last one is direct eye contact can make me very uncomfortable, and I agree. This is actually funny because if someone's talking to me, I am locked onto their eyes. I am very good at eye contact when someone is talking to me, but as soon as I start talking to them, my eyes start to wander around the room, and that is something that I've had to work on since I was a little kid because I did not look at people even if they were talking to me. So yes, direct eye contact makes me very uncomfortable. So I will be putting in my postal code, which I'm not going to be sharing with you guys, and then I will be submitting the results to see what I scored. So here are my results. So I scored a 90, which is an A by the way, and for them 90 to 100 means generally socially anxious. And I would agree with that statement that I am generally socially anxious. So they say you exhibit social anxiety in many settings, you experience multiple symptoms that can cause disruption, discomfort, and stress. So let's do one more, and this is the other one that I found. It is from the National Social Anxiety Center, and it is called the Lebowitz Social Anxiety Scale for Adults. It measures the way that social anxiety plays a role in your life across a variety of situations. Read each situation carefully and answer 2 questions. The first question asks how anxious or fearful you will feel in the situation, and the second question asks how often you avoid the situation. So I'm basing each situation based off of fear and avoidance. Okay, so the first situation is using a telephone in public. Fear, I would say that I don't know if I'd call it fear, but I don't like doing it. So I'd put mild fear and avoidance usually. If I have to talk to someone on the phone, I will usually go to a different room to do it. The second one is participating in small group activity. I do not like participating in small group activities. Also, I think it comes from being in groups that I've done all the work for, so I definitely don't like doing it. So fear I would put as 1, and avoidance is 3. I would always go out of my way to do that. So situation is eating in public. I guess I never realized, is eating in public a symptom of social anxiety? Because I often find myself not wanting to eat in public. Anyway, so eating in public, I would say moderate, and avoidance usually. I only do it obviously in school because I have to eat lunch. But if I'm around a group of people that I don't know, I'm very self-conscious about the way that I eat. Not that I'm a slob by any means, but I just am always thinking about like, oh, I should be taking tiny bites and whatever. For drinking with others, like I said before, I don't drink alcohol, but drinking with others, I guess I would. So it says that if you come across a situation you ordinarily do not experience, we ask that you imagine. So drinking with others, I imagine that I would have some mild fear doing that, and I would probably avoid that. Talking to someone in authority, fear, it depends on who the person in authority is, so we'll put that at mild, but I would definitely often, I would say, avoid that. Acting, performing, or speaking in front of an audience, like the last test, yes, I probably have severe fear of that, and I would usually avoid that. Going to a party, again, I wouldn't say severe, I would say moderate fear, and avoidance 3 for usually. I guess they're going to add this up all at the end. So working while being observed, I don't think anyone really likes working being observed. I don't think that's something that's reserved for people who are socially anxious. But I would say mild, and yeah, I would usually avoid that if given the option. Writing while being observed, I'm not self-conscious of my writing, but again, I don't think anyone likes to do things being observed, so I'd put that mild, and I would probably avoid that if given the choice. Calling someone you don't know very well, yes, I do not like doing this. If I have to call someone I don't know, like the doctor's office or whatever, I have to check the phone number like 5 times. I have to have a notebook in front of me with things that I have to say and to take notes of what the person says to me. So I would say, is that a severe fear of that? Okay, fine, severe. And then usually for avoidance. Talking face to face with someone you don't know very well. Well, as I've talked about before, I'm very shy, so yes, I wouldn't say severely fearful of a situation like that. I'd say moderate, and then 3 usually. I'm not going to go out of my way to talk to someone that I don't know. Okay, so we have meeting strangers. Again, not going to do that. I wouldn't, again, say it's a severe fear, but definitely moderate, and I would usually avoid that. Urinating in a public bathroom. Well, I don't really like going into public bathrooms just because they're germy, but this might be TMI. But in our lab building at my school, there are 2 floors, so there's the basement level and the first floor, and if I have to go to the bathroom, I usually go to the basement bathroom because there's less chance of me running into somebody. Not even someone I know, but just running into somebody. So, again, okay, that's probably severe, and avoidance usually. Entering a room where others are already seated, it depends on the situation. I wouldn't say that it's a severe fear. I would really say, well, I guess if they're already seated because something has started, now that changes the situation. So we're just gonna do mild. Avoidance, I would probably often avoid doing that. Being the center of attention. I hate when attention is on me, so yes. But I wouldn't say severe. Again, it depends on the attention. Is it bad attention? Let's do moderate. And usually for avoidance. Speaking up at a meeting. Again, I don't do many meetings because I'm a dental student, but I guess if I were in a situation like that, mild fear, and yes, I would probably very much avoid that. Taking a test of your ability, skill, or knowledge. Now, this might just be because I have testing anxiety, but yes, taking a test to test my ability, skill, or knowledge, severe, and I would, if I could, avoid taking tests for the rest of my life, I would, but unfortunately, I don't have that choice. Expressing disagreement or disapproval to someone you don't know very well, I would say a mild fear for that. Sometimes I feel like it's easier to express disagreement to someone you don't know rather to someone you do know, so we'll put that mild, and probably often. Looking someone who you don't know very well straight in their eyes. I don't have a fear of that per se, so I would say mild or none. I don't like doing that. See, fear's a weird thing, because am I like scared out of my mind to do it, but do I not like doing it? So I'm gonna say none, but yes, usually I avoid people looking at people's eyes. But again, if they're talking to me, I'm locked onto their eyeballs. Giving a prepared oral talk to a group. Well, yes, severe fear for that, and always avoid. Do not want to do that, even though I'm pretty okay doing it when I have to do it, but again, I would not voluntarily do that. And I think I heard one time that one of the fears, like the top fears in the world, is giving a talk in front of people. Like, people would not do that. Okay, so trying to make someone's acquaintance for a purpose of a romantic or sexual relationship. Fear, again, I don't have any prospects, so but if I did, maybe mild? I wouldn't know if I avoid it. I guess I am avoiding it, but that's also because I'm not interested in having a relationship right now, so we'll do occasional. We'll do often. So I'll do often. Returning goods to a store for a refund. That involves talking to people. So fear, I would say mild, and avoidance usually. That's why I have to do my research before I buy stuff, so I can avoid going back to the store to return something for a refund. Giving a party, I guess it depends on what the party is and who's going for it, but let's say it's just a party in general. I would say moderate. I don't particularly like the idea of having to host one, so I would probably always avoid that. And then the last one is resisting a high-pressure salesperson. I think it's probably easy to resist a high-pressure salesperson because they kind of annoy you to the part where you're going to say no just to spite them. So I would say no fear to that, but I wouldn't put myself in that situation. I know some people think that's fun to be able to, bicker with people, but I would say, again, I've never been in this situation. So, but avoidance, yeah, I would say I'd often avoid that. Okay, so I guess, so this is the scoring scale. 0 to 29, you do not suffer from social anxiety. 30 to 49 is mild social anxiety. 50 to 64 is moderate. 65 to 79 is marked. 80 to 94 is severe social anxiety, and greater or equal to 95 is very severe social anxiety. So I guess they're adding up these two different columns of fear and avoidance and seeing where you lie on the scale. So here we go, submitting my score. Guys, I have 38 for the fear and 67 for the avoidance, which equals to 105. You suffer from very severe social social anxiety. Well, I guess there you have it. Based on the National Social Anxiety Center, I have very severe social anxiety. And I guess looking at some of these, I realize, yeah, I do kind of avoid doing things. And I guess these things are weird to avoid for a normal person. Okay, let's move on. Okay, well, now that I've spilled the tea, I'm gonna leave y'all with some food for thought. I guess the food for thought is, don't self-diagnose yourself based on people's videos on Instagram or TikTok or social media, and definitely don't self-diagnose yourself with tests on the internet. If you have a condition or you think you have one, please go see someone who is specialized in that area. I think some of these tests kind of blew it out of proportion, but I don't feel that it affects my life too much. And again, for people who know me and are watching this, please don't feel like you have to invite me to places I don't want to go. But for social anxiety, I feel like I know what triggers it, and I know things that can help calm me down. So it doesn't really affect my life as much as I think these tests think that it is doing. And maybe these situations have taught me a thing or two about myself, but despite being socially anxious, I am still in dental school, and I'm going to be a dentist at the end of the day, and I think that goes to show you that introverts, we get a lot of flack sometimes, but I think introverts make some of the best clinicians, and I'm not saying that extroverts don't. I think extroverts do because they can talk to people and that comes naturally to them, but I think introverts are really good at reading the nonverbal parts of communication, and just because you are an introvert or are socially anxious does not mean that you can't go out and do big things in the world. Well, that's all for today. I hope you enjoyed listening to what I've done this past week of dental school and finding out a little bit about me that I just don't like leaving the house, and that's okay. But if there's something specific that you want me to talk about, please DM me on Instagram or drop a carrier pigeon my way. I would love to answer your questions or talk about things that you want me to talk about outside of dentistry. Thank you for listening or for watching or both. I really do appreciate you. I'll see you in the next episode.